Hi, I'm Matt. Welcome to Disney Planning Insights. Through creative content and live shows, we explain the hidden details of the Disney experience so that our clients can execute memorable adventures. Together with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel, we have helped hundreds of clients plan, book, and prepare for magical Disney vacations. Let our experience help you avoid common planning mistakes and maximize the enjoyment on your next Disney trip. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Matt with the DPI podcast. It is Monday, March the 31st, and we are back live with a new show, and we've got a lot to talk about this week as... Really, it was kind of a circumstantial thing that we ran into kind of what's going to be our big topic tonight. And does Disney really have a problem when it comes to this summer? Not only with Epic Universe, but with some other things as well. You know, we were booking some dining this week, and we noticed a lot of openings. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We also got a lot of good news when it comes to the parks. If you are going in the early summer, we've got some news on some things that are going to be opening. So definitely want to check all of that out. And we have started a goal. So every week we're going to have a goal now, whether we're live, whether we're recorded, whatever we are going to put a goal. We are at that level at YouTube where we can do super chats now. So we're going to try and do a super chat goal every week. Not going to set the bar really high for you guys to spend your money. But the first super chat this week is going to get to pick a top 3 topic. And you can make it up. If it could be one we've already done, whatever. But, you know, if you are generous enough to support the channel through donations, we are going to definitely have some fun with it and let you guys... kind of guide the show a little bit. Not that we need more ideas. I think we still have like 50 some ideas for top 3s, but we want to get some more, you know, viewer interaction. And I think the top 3 has been one of the best ways to do that. We've had a ton of viewer created ideas and they've gone extremely well. We've had a lot of fun with them. So definitely wanted to get that out into the ether there. Also, lots of subscribers. We are up to 861 subscribers, trying to get to that goal of 1,000 over on YouTube. Appreciate everyone that's joining the channel. A lot of people are watching Happily Ever After. If that video continues on the trajectory that it is right now, it's going to get to 200,000 views this week. Absolutely amazing. Not in a million years would I ever have thought that we'd have a video on YouTube that's getting close to 200,000 views, and we do, and it's awesome. So thank you guys all for watching that video. Thank you guys all for subscribing off of that video. But this week I want to just go through a few. And Kennedy Barney, thank you for the subscription. Joe Brotan, Virginia Lee, John Wesley Latta, Bobby Cosgrove, Bobby Larson, and Diago Mountbatten. Thank you guys all for subscribing over on YouTube this week and making yourself public so that we can at least give you some props on the channel, because we do very much appreciate everybody that subscribes to the channel and all the interaction that we get from our subscribers. Really love to get those emails, talk to our viewers online. If you're on the stream right now, at the bottom are all of our social media accounts. Feel free to reach out to us on any of them. We are more than willing to engage those conversations. All right, while those are continuing to go, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the news. I'm not even going to go over to the news screen tonight. I don't know that Peter's going to jump on. I haven't heard from him. It is golf season, so definitely going to do more shows without him than with him here over the next couple of months. But, you know, once we get back into the summer, we'll get a little bit back into a rhythm again. So let's get into a little bit of the news. Big news over the last about week or so is we've got a date for some shows. And really, they kind of came hot and heavy over the last week. But the big ones that came out are that we are going to get the new Little Mermaid show and the new Villain show at Disney Hollywood Studios on May the 27th. This is really cool because we're actually going to be down at the parks when these open, so we should have videos up and going about a week afterwards if they allow us to take videos. You know, we are very much within the guidelines, so if they ask us not to take video, we do not take and post videos of those areas. So think about things like the American Experience and Hall of Presidents and Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. You haven't seen any of that from our channel because they asked that you don't tape it. So we do not post anything that we take out of those shows. But yeah, so we've got the two new shows coming out. The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure, is going to inhabit the space that the Little Mermaid inhabited before. Over there, kind of at the corner of that Disney Junior courtyard there, right to the right of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Hollywood Studios. And then the Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After is going to take the spot of Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, and that is all the way back by Tower of Terror. So you go to end of Sunset Boulevard, hang a left, and Hollywood Boulevard, hang a left, like you're going back to Rock and Roller Coaster. When you get to the Rock and Roller Coaster building, hang a right, and go back until you can't go anymore. There's a big building back there, and that is where the Disney Villain show is going to be. Now, one thing I am going to say about the Disney Villain show is I do not think that this is a permanent location for this show. And let me kind of walk you through my logic on this. There's really no villains at Hollywood Studios in that area. They're changing Rock and Roller Coaster to a Muppets ride as Monsters, Inc. takes over the Grand Avenue area of Hollywood Studios. You're going to see the Muppets kind of migrate out of Grand Avenue over to where Rock and Roller Coaster is. At some point, we are going to get show roulette, and they're going to be shuffling the shows all around, and we're going to see the Villain show go into the building that Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor is in right now at Magic Kingdom. Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor is going to go over into the new Monsters, Inc. area, and the Muppets 3D show will get a revival next to Rock and Roller Coaster, where the Villain show is going in right now. Why would they do this? They are doing this because they need to run data. They need demographic data on who is going to go to the show. Because Disney is getting ready to build a Villains area, they need to know where they need to go age range wise. I think Disney is putting themselves into a little bit of a pickle by putting a Villains area in Magic Kingdom. Now, the reason I say this is Magic Kingdom is your family-friendly park. It's getting less and less with the addition of Tron, but it's always been the park where the family could stay together the longest. You know, when you think of all of the other parks now, all of the other parks have rides where the older kids are going to go and the younger kids won't or can't ride it. So think of Soarin', think of Guardians of the Galaxy, think of Tron, think of Everest, think of Tower of Terror, think of all of that stuff. Navi River Journey, or not Navi River Journey, yeah, Navi River Journey, Flight of Passage. All of these rides where families tend to split up now at the other parks. Magic Kingdom didn't have one of those until Tron came. Everything else was relatively family friendly, even like Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, all that kind of stuff, still relatively family friendly. Now we're going to start seeing that pull apart. More of the universal philosophy. And with that being said, I think they're using this Villain show to start getting some age range demographic information. How are they going to do this? Magic bands. How many people wear magic bands that go to the parks? Quite a few. And tied to that magic band is your personal information. So they are going to be able to tell if little Sally, that's 7 years old, has her magic band on when she goes into those doors, she's going to scan into that building. They're going to be able to pull this information. It's going to be generic information. They just may pull the age ranges of people that have gone into that building, but they're getting information out of there. That's why the magic bands exist, so that Disney can kind of pull this type of information. They can see park traffic information, which is big when they're building new attractions. The Villain Show is going to be a precursor to A, what kind of attractions are going to go in there, and B, how fast do they need this land to come about? I think if you get past the first 6 months of the show and it dies out, you're probably going to see the idea of Villain's Land kind of be put on hold and the brakes put on a little bit, and you may see the emergence of more of an Avengers Campus type area or something like that come up. But if this show is popular for the next year or so, you are going to see an accelerated timeline for Villain's Land. And with that being said, if there is an accelerated timeline, they're going to have the age information that they need to kind of start gauging what type of rides that are going to go into this land. I think you are getting at least 2, maybe 3 rides in this land. One of them will be a roller coaster, one of them will be a dark ride, and the third ride will be to be determined. Whether it's a carousel type ride or, something of that effect to where, they're using new technology. I think you're going to have 2 to 3 rides. The roller coaster is going to be very dependent on the age range of the guests that they expect to be in this land. So they're going to take and have this show at Hollywood Studios. I think it's going to be probably there 12 to 18 months. Then you're going to see the show shuffle I talked about. They're going to have their basic information. And when it goes to Magic Kingdom, now you're going to have the people that are in that park that they're going to be putting Villain's Land in going into this show. They're going to get more detailed data of the guests that are going to Magic Kingdom who is going in to see the Villain Show. It just kind of compounds the data that they already have. It either solidifies and says, hey, we've got this age range that is coming to the show, we're getting this many repeat guests, all that kind of stuff. It gives them a better idea on how to move forward with Villain's Land. I think from there, you're going to start seeing the true ideas of Villain's Land start to emerge, whether it becomes a more tamed down version of a Villain's Land or if it's more of like a teenage type hangout area. You're going to get all this information. Disney's going to get all this information from who sees the show. Now, one thing that my wife and I talked about pretty heavily the other day was, I think we're about a half a generation in that doesn't know what a Disney villain is. Really, the last good Disney villain was probably in Big Hero 6 or Incredibles 2. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, oh, Wish had a villain. Magnifica was a great villain. Wish was such a departure from what Disney is doing right now movie-wise that you can't include it with the current movie selection. Even though it is a newer movie, it was made to be an homage to Disney movies past. And you can see that in the animation, you can see that in the storyline. It is very much an older timeline Disney movie. It is not your Turning Reds and your Inside Outs and the movies that Disney's putting out now. I mean, think about Turning Red, Inside Out, Luca, Strange World. There's a lot of movies here that the villain is within and not external. So I think that's something else where a Villain's Land is going to be interesting. Because when you think about what Disney has tried to do with the generations, a Magic Kingdom's a great example because The princesses, for the most part, in the Magic Kingdom are princesses from my generation. I'm in my mid 40s, we'll say, and prior. There is not a lot of new princess imprint into that park. When you look at, you've got Rapunzel in Princess Fairy Tale Hall. You've got Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Really past that, what used to be the Brave Encounter up at next to the castle. But you've got Cinderella, you've got Snow White, you've got Belle, you've got Alice, you've got a lot of your older princess flavor sprinkled around that park. So I think when you're looking at that, you're going to have a lot of parents and grandparents teaching kids about villains when they go into Villains Land. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing when it comes to Disney. So, all right, let's get on to a little bit of other news because, like I said, there is quite a bit going on right now. Disney Vacation Welcome Home Center Chateau de Voyage is opening in Canada Pavilion and Epcot this spring. It will include a model room of the Island Tower at Disney's Polynesian Villas and Bungalows, and space to learn more about Disney DVC membership. That is coming to the Canada Pavilion. Final performance of Avengers Assemble will happen this week at the Avengers campus. Avengers Assemble is kind of that show that's up on the big Avengers building. They are going to be taking that away for a little while as the construction happens for the 2 new rides over there. We saw that. Let's see. Villain Show. Disney World announces 50% off kids tickets, free dining, $89 tickets, and more. Lots of deals. We're going to hold off a little bit on this one because I want to tie this one into a little bit more of what's going on. Because, again, 35% off for Florida residents in late 2025. Projection show over at Disneyland Galaxy's Edge. Shadows of a Memory, a Skywalker saga, nightly in the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Started on the 28th, so started on Friday of last week. It is fantastic. If you're a Star Wars fan, try and get to Disneyland. They are doing a fantastic projection show against the mountains in Batu. So definitely want to check that out. Disney unveiled one of the new floats. It's going to be from the movie Wish, as part of the Disney Streamlight Dream the Night Away. New nighttime parade opening this summer. It still seems like it's later summer. It doesn't seem like it's early summer. If it's early summer, if it's when we're down there, we're getting video of it, it'll be up. We'll go with that. New Mythosaur mug at Disneyland's Oga's Cantina just dropped. Awesome mug. They do a great job with some of these releases. Definitely want to check that out if you are going to Oga's Cantina and you're a Mandalorian fan. Really how it works is you get one to drink out of. You give that one back. They bring you out a box that's got a brand new one in it. So definitely something cool to do there. If you're going over to Disneyland Paris, the Alice Queen of Hearts Back to Wonderland show is coming back. This is the stunt show that was kind of in that backlot theater that has the BMX bikes and the pogo stick, entertainers, all kinds of stuff. It is going to start on May the 17th, and it'll run through August 31st, and it'll be at 12, 3:05, and 4:30 p.m. over at Disneyland Paris. Hocus Pocus Villain Spectacular Show returns to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party in 2025, so the Sanderson sisters are going to entertain everybody up on stage again. Great show if you've been to a Not So Scary Halloween Party. Definitely something to check out. They run it multiple times throughout the night, so definitely want to plan your day to see one of the parades, one showing of the show, and definitely the fireworks at that night. we are getting, starting May 23rd, Stitch's Interplanetary Beach Party Blast at Tomorrowland Terrace and Pixar Pals Playtime Party at Fantasyland Theater to return to Disneyland Park for a limited time. So Stitch, the new Lilo and Stitch movie, is going to open up around Memorial Day this year. You are going to see a lot of Stitch activations over the next 2.5 months. Just be ready. Stitch is going to be taking over the parks, and don't be surprised if you get a redo of the toilet papered Cinderella castle, like we did a few years ago. Definitely something to look out for. Stitch is going to be wreaking havoc all over Disney parks for the next couple of months. I am going to take that Peter is not coming on. Okay. So we're gonna tie this last news story kind of into everything else that I want to talk about the trouble that the parks might be in over the next, I'm gonna say 6 months, probably closer to 8 months. But so I'm going to preface this with a little bit of background. So my family and I, we've got a vacation coming up. So we got our 60-day window here recently, and we booked meals. We are doing a split stay this time, so I actually had to book it in kind of 2 shifts. First shift, got on, day that I was supposed to, got all the meals that I wanted to at the times I wanted to. It was surprisingly easy. Not saying that we were trying to get reservations at difficult locations, but it just felt easier than it normally should be. We like places like Tep and Edo and Tusker House. What else did we get? Maria and Enzo's. Skipper Canteen, Tony's Town Square, that kind of stuff. I mean, we aren't going for the top tier places everywhere, like a Space 220 or something like that. But I looked at Space 220 and there were reservations, which was strange. And then I looked, I'm meeting up with another family down there, and I looked at reservations for 8. And you could get Space 220 for 8. So I was like, this is weird. So I started doing some digging. I started trying some different time frames and stuff like that. And there's a lot of dining reservations right now. So let's fast forward to this morning. This morning, we actually missed our second dining reservation window because we don't do split stays. We normally park at a hotel, and we're there the whole time, and it is what it is. So I got on later. So we got on. So normally, locally, it will open up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I got on at 10 after 8 this morning. And we were looking for an Oga's Cantina for 8. And we could get it anytime we wanted. On a Saturday. And then we looked at Sci-Fi Grill. Sci-Fi has been one of the toughest reservations to get since it reopened after COVID. There were 6 reservations available on the day we wanted. So, came home. During my lunch break today, I started looking at other reservations. What would be considered the tougher reservations to get for families? What would be some of the better restaurants that are harder to get into? Everything had reservations. Everything was open. Chef Mickey's. You could get it any day you wanted at any time you wanted, and be within probably 20 minutes of your preferred time. Royal Table, same thing. Any day you wanted. Topolino's. There were still, I was looking at a 10-day window from the end of May into the beginning of June, and there were breakfast reservations available. And it's weird to see that. So my wife and I start talking about, what could be the bigger problem? Is it going to be crowds, or is it going to be, where does the consumer draw the line when it comes to their Disney experience? Is going to the parks good enough now without doing all the extra stuff? And when you think about that, it puts a real strain on the rest of the park. Because when you look at, say, Magic Kingdom alone, and you look at the size of some of the restaurants, and kind of when you're waiting for your reservation, and then you have your reservation, and you're eating, and everything that goes into the kind of that, let's say, hour of a meal time at a sit-down Disney restaurant. And you look at that, and let's just say each restaurant can suck up 400 to 500 people for that hour. People coming, people going to the bathroom, standing outside, getting their bearings again, waiting for the reservation to come. All that kind of stuff goes into that. But what that does is, in Magic Kingdom alone, there's 8 sit-down restaurants. That sucks up about 4,000 people off of the main drags into the restaurant areas. Now, like I said, some of these restaurants are bigger, smaller, whatever. But roughly, it sucks up that amount of people, which is really, really, it's a significant number. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, it's a significant number. And I think a lot of the crowding in the parks, and if the parks seem crowded this summer, it's more because of that and not because there's more people going to the parks. I think a lot more people are going to go to the parks and bring their own food, or go to quick service, or snack, and avoid that, $30 to $60 meal per person when they go to Disney this year. And I think that's a huge hit to Disney. A huge hit to Disney. Now, with that being said, I think Disney is starting to realize some of the mistakes that they've made since COVID. And I think COVID kind of forced their hand on a few things. But I think you're going to start seeing a slow, probably regretful move back to some of the things that they had prior to 2020. And one thing that got announced today was Disneyland, or Disney World, is piloting the return of the resort airline check-in service. Now, if you haven't been to Disney before, or you've only been since COVID, Disney used to have a resort check-in service where you could check in to your airline from your hotel, leave your bags at your hotel, and they would end up at your home airport. So Disney would take them to Orlando International. They had their own area where they got them to the airlines, and then the airlines got them on the right plane so that they got home with you. We used that service every time we went to the parks. Because what did it do? It made it to where we didn't have to come back and do bell service when we got back to the resort. Even with, if we, had a carry-on bag on the way down to the resort, we might have checked that bag on the way back. That way we just didn't have the bag to worry about going home. Really the only things that we didn't fly with we did carry on with us were the kids' backpacks that had like their stuffies and their blankets and their plane stuff and our camera equipment. Everything else got checked on the way back. On the way down, we'd always have a bag that had outfits in it. Just in case our luggage got lost, we'd each have a couple of outfits in one bag that would be a carry-on. Plus the camera equipment, plus the kids' backpacks, that kind of stuff. This is a big deal. Now, it is a pilot program, but there are some precursors that are starting to get hit on this being expanded resort-wide. Now, this is starting today, okay? March 31st, we're seeing it. Only at Pop Century. So, if you're staying at Pop Century Resort, they have a dedicated area for this. So it makes it a really great place for them to kind of pilot it. So if you go, in behind Bell Service, the backside of Bell Service is the resort or the airline check-in area. It works really well over there. Okay? And it's only for Southwest Airlines. I know, it's Southwest, and we all know what's going on with Southwest right now, but you've got to start somewhere. And they start with Southwest. So at Pop Century, flying on Southwest, you have the ability to use this service. Again, I'm very interested to see what happens with the expansion of this service, because it is a big deal. Because if this gets up and starts running, and they're seeing the usership that they need to see to expand it, this could be the precursor to Magical Express coming back. Now, why is Magical Express such a big deal? Disney is feeling the pain of not having control of the consumer when they get off the plane. When you have the ability to choose your transportation, because everything's roughly the same price, to get an Uber, to use Magical Express, or to use Mears Express, to use Sunshine Express, all that kind of stuff. It's all about the same price. And you can go anywhere. So that means you can go to a Disney resort. It means you can go to a Universal resort. You can go to an off-site hotel. You can go anywhere now and stay anywhere. And Disney lost control of that consumer, because it used to be you got off your plane and you already had your bags tagged for Disney to pick up and take to your resort hotel. You got off your plane, you were doing the Magical Express. So you went down to the lower level of Concourse A and you found your line that went to your resort hotel, and you waited on your bus to go to your resort hotel, and Disney had control of you from the time that you left your airport to the time that you got back to your airport. Now they don't. And now people are saying, okay, instead of using all these freebies that Disney has and maybe going to Universal for a day or two, now they're going to Universal, staying at one of the resort hotels over there because they're cheaper. And they're saying, maybe we'll go to Disney for a couple of days. Disney loses out on the resort hotel. Disney loses out on meals. Disney loses out on transportation. Disney loses out on a lot of things because that consumer isn't immersed in the Disney bubble from the time that they get on the plane at their home airport. Now, why do I say at the time that they get on the plane at their home airport? Because what's the first thing that you do the day that you're going on your Disney vacation? You're slapping those Disney bag tags on your luggage. You're putting on your magic band, and you're going to the airport, and you're saying, I'm going to Disney. Now, you're not doing that. You don't have that brand loyalty anymore, and Disney's starting to figure that out. I think over the next year, you see the return, or at least the piloted return, of a lot of things that we saw go away. Mainly resort check-in for airlines and Magical Express. I know Disney's really pushing for the train to happen because I think the train solves the issue of Magical Express and the tension they have with Mears. But I think you still see Magical Express in some way, whether it's from the train station at Disney Springs to the resort hotels, or directly from MCO to the resort hotels. You're going to see it come back in some form or fashion. So like I said, lots going on there. Also, tons of deals. If you want to go to the parks over the next through December now, you can get a deal. I mean, and they're all over the place. The importance of having a Disney travel agent has never been more than right now. Even if the parks are a breeze to navigate because there's nobody there, there are so many deals and so many complex deals that you kind of need to know how it's worded and why it's worded the way it is and what's included with those deals. Because we went through and booked the same package at Disney World 3 different ways for the last week of July, and they were $2,200 apart. Same room, same dining package. The only thing that was different was the ticket, and the ticket was based on what was required to meet the deal. And we got everything from $5,600, and this was for a 5-day, 4-night, 4-day ticket with a dining package. We got everything from $5,600 to $3,300 with dining plan, tickets, everything. So definitely need to make sure that you are at least confirming your results with somebody that knows Disney well, because there is a lot to kind of get through in the weeds right now when it comes to finding the best deal on Disney. So lots of deals going on, even on the cruise line. I think the cruise line seen a little bit of a dip in their riderships, their I don't even know, patronage, that kind of stuff. What the word that they use, but there's good deals on Disney Cruise Lines. Let me see. Here it is. So Scott Sanders with DCL Blog put up, we got special offers for U.S. military personnel on the Disney Dream, Fantasy, yeah, lots. Magic, Wish, Wonder, Florida resident special offer. Basically all the boats. Canadian resident rates for the Dream. Yeah. So definitely, if you're looking at Disney Cruise Lines and looking for a deal on that, get with your travel agent. Go over to DCL Blog on Twitter X. They do a great job weekly putting up the current offers on what's going on with Disney Cruise Lines and everything over there. But yeah, like I said, lots going on when it comes to Disney. With that being said, I'm going to pull it back a little bit locally, because I want to talk a little bit about Lorcana, and you're going to see a little bit of push, especially over on the Twitter X side. As far as me vocalizing some frustrations with some of the language that Ravensburger is using when it comes to hosting Lorcana tournaments, and some of the things that might happen if you don't follow the guidelines that they're setting in place. So we had an event locally that was titled a second chance event, and it was basically put out there that it was for people that haven't won a set championship in the local area. We know a lot of the local players, so we have a good idea of who's won set championships, who hasn't won set championships, that kind of thing, and wanted to put together an event for people that haven't won a set championship yet. And the person that organized this event got a lot of donations, put a lot of his own money into the event to make sure that there was good prizing. Nothing was supplied by Ravensburger. Nothing was supplied by the store that hosted the event other than the space. I don't know that the store, donated packs or anything like that. I think it was purely just a use of space for this event. And what happened was, in the week leading up to the event, there were some grumblings that some people that had won other events were going to show up and basically say, hey, we're going to play in this event because in the rules laid out by Ravensburger, you cannot exclude participants in Lorcana events. And if you were to exclude us from this event, we are going to go to Ravensburger and have them pull the, I don't know if it's licensing or the ability to host events or whatever. And we're going to look at what happens to the judges' credentials as well, because a judge was one of the organizers of the event as well. So, kind of became a big deal leading up to and the day of the event. An event that had what was going to be a relatively good turnout, 30 to 40 people, with people dropping because of who was showing up and people that ended up not playing in the event because they were courteous and had won an event before and decided that, this was a second chance event and decided not to play in it. The event only ended up having 17 participants in it. And some of the participants were people that had won past events. And unfortunately, the people that had won past events ended up prizing in this one as well, and taking some of the donated prizes for their personal collections or to sell or whatever. So I talked to the organizer of the event after the event and then the next day, and really kind of got a bee up my ass about what had happened, because it wasn't about being an uber competitive event. It was about growing the community and giving people that may not be comfortable going to their first set championship or going into a super competitive event locally the chance to feel what that kind of feels like, because the people there were still competitive. It just wasn't your top tier players, and it wasn't meant to be your top tier players. And I think the local community lost out on a lot because of what happened. I'm interested to see what happens, because some of the same people are trying to organize a kids tournament later this summer. Will the same thing happen with this kids tournament? Because there's good donated prizes. There's enchanteds, there's champions mats, there's all that kind of stuff that people have been gracious enough to donate. Are we going to see the same type of thing happen in this kids event? Because, you can't exclude us because we're not under 18, and people try and play in that event. So I actually reached out to Ravensburger directly. I haven't gotten a response yet about what happened and kind of their spirit of the guideline response. I know what the guideline says in regards to a set championship, that stores are not allowed to be exclusionary, that the only excluding factor that a store can use is availability of space, and then if you've been banned from an event, if you've been banned from a store, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to these special events that you want to run for a certain group of people, say a community wants to run a ladies only event, can they do that without the threat of somebody coming in and saying, well, Lorcana's rules or guidelines says you can't exclude people and we're going to play? I don't know. Like I said, it just kind of burned my ass a little bit that happened. So if I get a resolution, you're probably definitely going to hear about it on here if you don't hear about it on Twitter X first. But yeah, it's just something that locally kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and you know, I'm gonna be relatively vocal about it because I think it was wrong what happened. I think it was wrong on the way that certain people handled the situation, and it really hurt our local community. And instead of being an area where it could have grown the community considerably, I think there were a lot of people that just felt like it wasn't worth their time to get beat by really good players again. So they either ended up not playing or dropping or whatever. So, yeah, just one of those things. So, unfortunately, it happened. Hopefully, in the future, we have a little bit better understanding of the guidelines on what can and can't be said, what can and can't be done to prevent this in the future. So if you made it this far into the show tonight, thank you very much for hanging around. I do not see any super chats. Let me go over to the other screen here and see if I got anything over here. There is nothing over on the other side, so we will move this super chat goal to next week. And if you are the first super chat, I think I even have like the super chat threshold at like $2. So if you want to donate $2 to the channel, get your super chat read on stream, and then get to pick a topic for a top 3 segment. Definitely next week, check that out, and we will we'll do the top 3 topic as soon as Peter and I can get together and tape a show together. So thank you guys all very much for watching tonight. I do very much appreciate all the engagement that we get out of the show. If you guys are interested in booking a Disney vacation with us, go over to Facebook at PATM Disney Travel, or to the website. It's going to be down below here in a second, but it's patmdisneytravel.wixsite.com/planning. Put your information into the little text box there. It emails directly to us, and we will respond and help you plan your Disney vacation. So you guys have a wonderful week. Stay safe this week, especially if you're in the Midwest, Mid-South. It looks like we got some bad weather coming through midweek, so take care of yourselves, and we hope to see you again next Monday. Bye now. No guests this week, just a lot of hot air from me talking Disney troubles and Lorcana issues. Hopefully next week we have another show and we can do it again. If you're looking for us on social media, you can find us in a lot of different places. The easiest is going to be over on Facebook at DPI Podcast for the show page, at PATM Disney Travel for the travel page. Over on Twitter X, we are at Disney Insights, and we also have Instagram, Twitch, everything else. Just come find us. We're somewhere. Thank you guys all for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, following, everything else you do to support the channel. You guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week. Bye now.